Hello. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I consider to be one of the secrets of landscape photography. That is Nik Viveza. Now, if you're not familiar with Nik Viveza, it's a great tool for editing colour and light in your images, and it can also allow you to produce some very realistic landscape adjustments. So here we've got a simple landscape that I took a couple of years back using an Olympus EM5. I'm going to edit this now in Nik Viveza. Now, even if you do use Nik Viveza, you might not realise some of the adjustments you can do with it. Or it might be that you've just got into habits where you don't use the tool quite as flexibly as it can be used. So I'm going to demonstrate some of these for you. So the first thing I need to do is start Nik Viveza. Okay, here we are then in Viveza interface, and the first thing a lot of people do is they'll start to do global adjustments. Now in this case I don't really want to do any global adjustments because the only thing I should use them for is balancing out my image, and at the moment that actually looks like a pretty reasonable image to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do some control point adjustment to really bring out some of the improvements that we can use. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to use the control point on these clouds in the sky. Now they're nice clouds, but at the moment they appear just too weak. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select them. So the way I like to do this is hold down my control key. I'm using a Windows PC for this, so I hold down the control key, and as I do that I can actually see what I'm adjusting and targeting with the control point. Now if you've got a Mac, I think the control key is the same as the command key there. Now what I need to do is, first off, I'm going to add a little bit more contrast into these clouds because they don't seem quite as strong as I would like them. And the other thing I can do is use the structure key to add in a little bit more structure. Now you're probably familiar for seeing those sorts of adjustments, and that's improved the sky. So this is really working to try to now improve this image overall. So we've not got to the real key adjustments yet that I want to show you. So let's just add in a little bit of adjustment into the blue of the sky here. So make sure we select the right areas. That's there, that looks pretty reasonable. And what I'm going to do here is just boost the saturation a little bit, and then finally I'm going to just add another control point down here, and I'm going to just adjust all the orange tones here, and I'll probably just add a little bit of warmth in there, and I'll boost the saturation a little bit as well. So that's starting to look okay. Now I'm sure you've seen adjustments like that before. But the other things that you might not have seen really is, take a look at this mid-ground here. Now it's quite light, and to be honest, that although it's got direct light on it, it doesn't look that great. What I want to do is try to actually darken it down and give it more impact to draw the eye. So the way I'm going to do that is actually select it, and I'll just find a selection that works. Here we are, and I'll just pull that in so we're really targeting this area, and then all I'm going to do is actually boost the contrast, and by making it actually darker it actually helps draw the eye in this case, and it helps emphasize the shape of these flowers here. Okay, so that's possibly something a lot of people don't do. The natural reaction when looking at something like this is to try to really open up the area and make you see more detail, but actually what you need to do is boost the contrast. Now the other thing that you can do that you may not realize is actually increase the structure, because when you do that it actually lightens the highlights in the rock as well. So again, that emphasizes detail in the rock, and it helps draw the eye in from the foreground. Now next adjustment is this grass area over here. It's got some really nice colour here, but it actually appears very dark. Again, the natural reaction of most people is to try to add a control point here, select the area, and then maybe open up with the shadows. Now as I do that, it actually looks pretty horrible because there's just no sorry about that, contrast in this area. So what is better is actually, let's get that back down to 0 there, and now this time let's actually position this onto an area that's sort of got a little bit of light on it. You can see down in the loop view where I'm positioning it, and then let's just increase the contrast and maybe just position that again. Right, there you go. Now as I've increased the contrast, what it actually does is it opens up and makes lighter some of these light areas. It leaves the dark areas though fairly unchanged. The other thing I can do again is add a little bit of structure, and as I do that, look how it lightens up these areas here slightly, even though we've not actually increased any exposure. It also leaves the dark areas dark. And this is great because what it's doing is it's actually creating a 3D effect here by actually increasing the contrast but making areas appear lighter at the same time. It's a great little technique. You've probably seen paintings by old masters that have wonderful light depicted and also a lot of shadows, and here all we're doing is using the shadows. So again, if I select this area here, and what I'm going to do this time is, rather than target the area and open the shadows with the slider that way, I'm going to actually set the slider negative so that it darkens these areas, and I'm going to duplicate that control point there and do exactly the same here. Now at the same time I'm going to select this area here which is very light, and I'm just going to open that up a little bit, and I'm actually going to now give it a little lift of the shadows, very small, but I'm going to boost the contrast as well, and I'm also going to boost the structure. And then finally I'm going to add a little bit of warmth into that area and possibly increase the saturation as well. Now as I've done that, it now looks like it's getting wonderful light onto this area. Now that's all looking good, but I want to do a fairly similar trick over here to the grasses here, and that's to help the sea pink flowers here stand out more against the grass, but also create some great lighting on the grass. So I'm just going to add a control point here. I'm going to do it so it selects the grass. I'm going to boost my contrast again, so already starting to give good light. Add some structure to give it a bit of depth. Add some warmth now to those areas, and add a little bit of saturation as well, and that also now looks like we're getting amazing light onto this area. Now I'm going to duplicate that control point again, but this time the easy way to do it is hold down the Alt key, and then as you're holding it down you drag the control point and you create a new one. So I'm going to just position that control point there, and then I'm going to create another one and just position it down here into the corner of the grasses. So now we're starting to see a much improved version of our image. Now the other trick is I really want to intensify these sea pinks. Now the way that typically people do that is they'll position the control point on the sea pinks and they will move around. There we go. So this is a selection now on the sea pinks, and the temptation is to really increase the saturation, which okay, it works, but you lose a lot of detail while you're doing that, or you risk blowing out the colours. A nice way you can do this is you can actually reduce the brightness, and as you do that it actually intensifies the colour. And again, if you then boost the contrast, boost your structure a little bit, and add in some saturation, you create this appearance of quite a high degree of saturation and colour, and quite intense colour. You can even throw in a little warmth if you like to those sea pinks, and maybe we will duplicate that control point and add them down into here, and that creates a nice 3D type effect, possibly a little bit too strong here. So what we'll do there is we'll just control that that control point if we want. Let's have a look. No, that's fine. So overall now we're getting quite a nice feeling of light falling onto this area, and also for the midground and the sky. The other thing that I might just try now is to target the sand over here, and there we are. So there's the sand, and we might add a bit of warmth there, and also a little bit of saturation and contrast to it. There we go. So overall now we're getting quite a good image. So let's just compare that against our original. There's the original, which actually looked quite good when we were starting, but now there's the overall image. Now if we come down further and we just take the levels here, we can actually create, using the curve, quite an intense feeling, opening up the shadows just a little bit there, but then darkening down the image, and it now feels much more like a sunset scene rather than an early evening scene where the sun's still reasonably high. So there you are, the original, there you are, the adjustment. Let's put them side by side, and you can actually see there's a substantial difference in the two. So there you are, some of the adjustments that you might not have thought to do in Viveza. Remember, try to look at making the image darker in areas, so you actually increase the shadow, not reduce it. If you want to increase saturation, let's try this again up here. Just pull down the brightness and it gives you a much more saturated feel. And you can use the structure to emphasize detail in areas like the clouds, and also emphasize highlights in areas such as this grass here. I hope you found that useful. I really do suggest that you try to use Viveza as often as you can if you do landscapes. It's a great tool and it's also free. Thanks very much for listening.